folks, lunchtime impromptu live. Not exactly what we were planning to do, but Brad apparently has been a little busy. He's become a very popular individual. And so this is how serious it is. Brad has been super busy, and that's all well and good, Brad. But I am interrupting my week-long Cheetozard coverage for this. This is how important this is. So we're going to have to discuss it. So that's fine. We'll touch on it. So it is a little bit of a complex issue. I was telling Brad, we were chatting beforehand. It's complicated and it isn't. So let's start off with this, just high level, just to start off with, because this is what a lot of the folks in Canada are going to be concerned about. So right now, tariffs were initiated on both sides of the border, Canada and US. And obviously the question then becomes, how do you resolve that? In this case, for PSA specifically. I can't help you with the other stuff, but for PSA specifically, we can talk about it. So the bottom line, though, for now, if you're somebody in Canada and you want to submit cards to PSA, what is the process? What should they be doing right now?
Right. So last night we had to make the decision to turn off the online submission center for everyone in Canada, for us and for the customer. So once we did that, now everything is the same if you submit to PSA Canada. There's no difference whatsoever. So if you submit directly, you go to psacanada.ca, you submit your cards to us, everything will be the same. We take care of the entire process from start to finish. The reason behind, I guess we'll jump into that.
Yeah, let's go into this. So for people, so you said already that there is no difference in the process if you're submitting through them, but now let's talk about why there is no difference. So go ahead.
Correct. So if you are submitted on your own, so if Carlos, you wanted to submit cards direct to the US, you filled out a submission on the online submission center, a 20 card order, declared value $500 per card. The package would be declared value of $10K. You would submit that order. We would receive that in Santa Ana at our headquarters. You would be the import. We would be the importer of that package. So a 25% tariff would be applied to the value of that package. Mm-hmm. So once your order went through the stages and it got through assembly and it went into completion, we would then bill you, Carlos, for your order, 20 cards at $25 a pop, $60 return shipping, plus a tariff of $2,500. Mm-hmm. So obviously you would look at that and go, what the? Mm-hmm. So we would be the importer. So in order to do that, the only thing we could do last night was to block submissions from coming in. Mm-hmm. It was our only solution. So if you submit to us now at PSA Canada, everything will be the same, except for you do not do it through the online submission center. You'll have to do it old school. It'll be through the PSA Canada way. You would submit those cards to us, everything the same. We will take care of the work of bringing it across the border and back. So you will not incur any additional charges, tariffs, duties, etc. You will be responsible to pay HST on the grading service itself, which we've always done in PSA Canada.
Yeah. So that's an important note, though, because not to say you're not exempted from the tax portion of it, the HST, which was there before. That's still there. That hasn't changed. Right. But you have the ability with the paperwork that you've got on your end to allow it to go back and forth. So that's important. So from your perspective, when you submit, if I've already been submitting to you, my experience hasn't changed. Another side note is if you're dealing with an authorized Canadian dealer who is already part of your dealer network. So if I send to KD Collectibles, one of our friends, or if we go from the other side of it and we go into, I give the cards to Luke, at the expo, I gave cards to Luke. Well, if I'm giving cards to Luke, Luke's giving cards to you. So that process hasn't changed. I deal with Luke, I pay Luke, and he takes care of that for me and then gets the cards back to me. So same principle, or if I was to submit them directly to PSA Canada at the office in Halifax right now, it would be the same principle. So we'd be using the same process. So my experience wouldn't change, but somebody who had been submitting previously on the submission center, that is turned off. That has to change for now in order to accommodate this change.
Correct. And the one thing that we do have going forward, we are on schedule to still open up our submission center in Mississauga. We're shooting for August now. It got pushed back a month or two, but hopefully we'll be up and running by August, September. And we'll have our own online submission center, which will mirror psacard.com, and it'll be up for us as Canadians. So then it will have no impact whatsoever. So for us, we have a process. We've been working long and hard since the talk of this really came back into play in, I'm going to say October, November, about the potential. So we put things in order to make sure that we have processes so our customers will have an option. So we are a Canadian incorporated company in Ontario. as PSA Canada. And yeah, we're ready to rock and roll with everyone's cards. So we're trying to minimize the impact that this will have. You will lose some of the features when you submit PSA Canada. You're not going to have the ability to see your cards online, all the cool things that we've been developing with the app, etc. You're not going to have access to that until we go live with the new submission center, or there's a change in the tariff policy, which who knows? Obviously, I personally am hoping for. Hopefully, this is a short-term problem that we incur, but we do have everything in place to make this. So our customers in Canada, yes, they will be affected in certain ways, but they're not going to be affected in their pocketbook if they submit to an authorized dealer of ours or to PSA Canada directly.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we were just chatting before we went live. One of the complicated things. So high level, you just gave the answer in terms of what the process is. So that's how the process would be adjusted. Authorized dealers that could deal with you, or directly dealing with PSA Canada on this side. That's how you would resolve this issue. As the consumer, that's how you would deal with it. One thing, though, that we were talking about beforehand is that it did create a bit of, and this is something that I know in my life has come up as kind of question, because people don't completely understand. Number one, they're trying to get their head around what a tariff is, because most people don't think about that. They think about customs, they think about duties, those kind of charges. That's different. But what made it complicated is that this isn't like me importing oranges from Florida. It's not a traditional product, because in reality, what you're doing is you're taking a product that you already have, you're sending it to the US, they're encapsulating it, they're doing that, and then they're turning around and giving you the same product, but inside of a holder. So in effect, it's not a product in the same way, but it is. So there's a little bit of that murky middle ground. So it became a little bit complex. And that's where I think you were mentioning that obviously the legal team had to kind of try to work their way around this and go like, okay, so what is this product? What kind of product is it? How would this apply? And so fortunately, the last month or so, you've kind of had time to try to figure this out and try to determine what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, how it affects you, and to allow that kind of messaging.
Absolutely. I remember I pushed back at the first meeting we had. I just didn't understand. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me that this was going to happen. I thought, my personal thought was that the tariff would apply to the grading fee, kind of like what our Canadian law is when you send cards to the US and they come back across the border, you're obligated to pay the GST on the grading service. It had nothing to do with the value of the cards, etc. Whereas the tariff has all to do with the value of the items coming back and forth, which was news to me. I've learned a lot over this process. I've had, it's been very interesting, and I'm still learning. I'm sure I have some things that could be backwards when it really gets down to it, but we know we have a great legal team in place now. We have the system in place to do this from Canada. We're going to be doing it from, again, I won't get into the details, but we're working on all the different countries affected, including Mexico, including China. But for us in Canada, where I'm looking after things here, we're fully prepared to be able to handle this. So the other thing is that we know there's a lot of calls and questions in the last 6 hours that have been coming through. Oh, I heard there's going to be delays. There's going to be that. Nothing is going to change from that. From the customer standpoint, if you submit to PSA Canada, everything is going to be the same. Fortunately, our team, we have the resources in place. We have the manpower to be able to handle the incoming submissions that we will have coming to PSA Canada now. I've reached out to our authorized dealers. Yesterday, we chatted about things, and they're all prepared. Luke, KD, Choose Your Grading, Mint Inc., ND Sports. The list is available at psacard.com. If you go there, you just click dealer directory, put in Canada, and it will list all our official dealers. So they're prepared for it as well. So there will be no delays in orders. There's not going to be any service disruptions. Everything will be status quo.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sounds good. So I'll go through a couple of the comments there. So we've got here, so PSA Mexico. We touched on that a little bit briefly. So Wes here says, ridiculously Canadians have to deal with this. Well, I agree, but unfortunately, it's the hand we're dealt. Well, we were talking beforehand, and our focus is not on the how. It's it's not on the why. It's on how to deal with it. That's really where the main thing. So that's why right off the top, we took a second to have a little bit of fun, but the reality was to give the answer. The answer is, for folks that are doing it, this is the process. This is how you need to do it. And if you don't want to, if you want to wait for a little while, to let the dust settle, that's fine. But in the meantime, if you do still want to submit it, this is how you can do it. This is how you can minimize the amount of extra friction. This is who you can direct it to. I put the PSA Canada website in the description, so that's included in there. So that's part of it. So real quick, good info. Yes, thank you, Bobby. Good evening, Orlando. Well, good afternoon, Orlando, I should say. I'm used to the evening, so for me, the lunchtime thing's a little different. Bobbles correctly says, Brad, we can blame Eric. It is his fault. He does get blamed for everything because it is Eric's fault. So Bobby here says, any upcharges could be implemented at PSA Canada after they arrive. So the upcharge policy, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, the upcharges are the exact same as before. If it applied, it applied. If it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply.
Absolutely. Nothing changes there at all. So once the orders come back to us, so how the process would work, if you're a new customer to us, you send us your order. Once we receive your order, you're fully insured until we get that back based on our PSA terms and conditions, until we get the order back to you. So we would process the orders. We would put them under our account. They would go through a TIB process across the border and back through our brokers. Once we receive the orders back, we then would create an invoice. We email you the invoice, you pay, and we ship via FedEx or Canada Post. Fortunately, we've been getting ready for the new submission center in Mississauga. So we have our account set up with Canada Post now, and we're getting things rolling on that end as well. But you are fully insured. That's one other thing that I should let people know. We did not update our website back when PSA Canada was an independent business, owned and operated by myself and Sherry. We had a $1,000 maximum insurance policy in place per package. So just so everybody is aware, when we ship your cards back to you, you are fully insured, just like you submit direct to PSA for every package based upon our terms and conditions. So I chose not to update that on the website for lots of different reasons, but you are fully insured. So everyone that could be worried about that, if they do, we will have that updated. So that's not going to be in play.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sounds good. So Just Hockey here says, how does this affect me buying a $10 card off eBay? Can't answer that for you.
Well, yeah, so I can say this. Fortunately, now the de minimis that was in place between Canada, the US and China, I believe is the same thing. Every package with a declared value under $800 is not going to be affected at this time. So that is still in place. That's good. So if you ship anything between Canada and the US that has a max value of $800 or less, it will not be affected. So everything over a value of $800 US will be subject to tariffs. And I will say, so everything that I do say here is from my knowledge and what I've learned over the course of the last 2 or 3 months dealing with this. It's all my opinion. Don't hold me to anything, but I've tried my best to educate myself and ask the right questions so I can give the right answers back to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Now, one important thing I'll note, just as we're talking about this, we're not going to speculate on the rationale behind it, because that's not the purpose of this conversation. Just to be clear on that. So I read the comments, but I'm going to leave them be because it's not the place to discuss that. I have my own opinions on it, but I'll keep those out of it. But at the end of the day, the main focus was on this portion of it. Now, I think for the most part, Brad, I think we covered the main pieces of it. Really, the crux of it is that for now, the direct submissions for folks using the submission center is closed off until further notice, until something gets changed or resolved with that. And then for folks submitting, they can use, if they've already been using PSA Canada and submitting through there, nothing has changed for them in terms of the process, the policies, and a lot of that. It stays the same. So that portion of it is the same. And if you're using one of the authorized dealers that already deal with you, that is the same. So yeah. I think that's one of the key pieces that we're going to go into, and we'll figure out. We'll have a little bit of we'll kind of play by ear as things update and change.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I appreciate the opportunity. I jumped on. Thank you, Carlos, for doing this. Like I said, I am one person right here now in the office, but we do have a team in place as well. But as far as this comes, I want to make sure that people understand that there is really no changes to our operations, and that even if you are a new submitter to PSA Canada and you were submitting direct, just reach out to us. And if you got some questions, I'll be happy to get back to you. The other thing is I try really hard to respond to people, anyone that knows me or has dealt with me, very quickly. Usually you get a response in a few hours, etc. But at this point, today, messages, whether it be a phone call, text message, voicemail, or email, there will be a little bit of a delay just to the abundance of calls and emails that are coming through. But I will get to, if you could email, that would be the number one thing. And I will get to that in a timely fashion, that's for sure. But otherwise, it's business as usual.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad a decision was it to have your direct number be the number that's going in?
Yeah, honestly, again, I love this challenge, and as a company, we have a massive team that I can lean on for things, which is great. But that is one thing that I never changed. And so when you look at PSA Canada on the website, the number is my cell phone number, which comes up. So jokes aside, I did mention to you this morning, I went into the bank for 20 minutes and I came out, and I've been a busy person my entire life, and I've had lots of calls and texts, etc. But yeah, it was over the top when I looked at my phone for that 20-minute period. I was out of commission. But again, we're fully prepared. We have a fantastic team. Ryan Miller, who I mentioned to you many times, Carlos, who you met, who's head of international at PSA. We've been on top of this. Again, it's a very fluid situation. There's things happening. We didn't know when they were going to start. But we are on top of this, and we have a team in place to make sure that we will minimize the effect on Canadians that want to submit their cards to us. And we appreciate the business, and there won't be any delays, and we will get these orders in and out as fast as possible, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So I think we covered a lot of the key pieces. Like I said, I left the website in the description. I guess the social media. So I guess it'll be up to you guys to update the social media. So at least we've given that information. So now that's been passed along. Like I said, the instructions are very straightforward in terms of what's available right now. So it's good to get that piece of it out. So I guess, we'll cascade it out to wherever it needs to get cascaded. At least this can be used as a baseline for folks to follow with it. And then hopefully a couple of more updates down the road in the social medias, and then also the main website.
Yeah, 100%. I think as we go forward, Carlos, especially having your channel to give me the opportunity to come on here, and now I can direct people to watch this video after that should answer some questions, which will be great for me. Maybe we'll do a follow-up in the next 48 hours or something with another one once we learn a little more how things are going. But I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to give me the opportunity to get this message out there.
Sounds good. Well, then hopefully everybody else enjoys their lunch if you're out on the East Coast right now. So right now it's still lunchtime. So we'll send you back to enjoy the rest of your lunch, and then we'll leave Brad to go and try to figure out how to change his number. So I think see if you can change it on the fly. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Absolutely. All right. So that's it for this one. It wasn't impromptu. We wanted to come on and talk about that. So we'll leave this as a standalone thing. It'll stay on the channel, available there if people are interested and curious. I'm sure we can talk more about it on Friday. If anything has been updated to it, I'll keep in touch with Brad. And if anything new comes of it, then we can talk about it at that point. And then Dustin and Neo can borrow all the information and try to put it on their channel. So just throwing out there, and I'll be happy to respond if they don't accredit the correct thing. They're going to crop me out and just leave you there, Brad, so you're talking to a disembodied voice.
I love it.
Sounds good. All right, so thanks everybody for checking this one out. Again, it was an impromptu, so thank you to Brad for coming on and answering some questions. Appreciate that. And then hopefully this is at least some information for folks that need it, and then for everybody else, you can kind of figure it out. Again, it is nebulous. We'll figure it out as a work in progress, and then we'll take it from there, and we'll adjust as we need to. So I think that'll be the next step for a lot of us. All right. So thank you very much, Brad. Thank you very much, chat. We'll catch you in the next one.